Hello everyone. Let's discuss about structure of DBMS, structure of database management systems. This is a basic thing which one has to understand what happens inside the database management system, because we are trying to give many things to the database. It is keeping it stored. Who are all there inside to work with the database management system? Because once the data is stored into the database, it must be maintained, managed, yes or no. So all these things, what is happening at the back, we should see. So if you look at the structure of this particular thing, this is all what happens. This is all what happens. So finally, this is our database. This is our disk storage. The database is, the data is stored in this particular database, and this is stored in various forms that we'll discuss. Okay, so what is happening here? The data which is stored into the database is being used by the buffer manager, file manager, authorization and integrity manager, transaction manager. All this on a whole is called as a storage manager. So the data which is stored into the database is the disk storage, and this is managed by the storage manager, which consists of various managers at a particular level, and these are actually evaluated or processed by a query processor. This query processor basically consists of various queries: DML queries, interpreters, DML compiler and organizer, compiler and linker, application program code, and query evaluation engine. What are all this? Why all this? That we will see. So the data which is stored in the database is first of all managed by the storage manager, which is obviously processed by the query processor, because it is, the database is getting queries from various types of users, from various types of users. So these are all the users who are giving the data in terms of queries, and these queries are all managed or processed by query processor, and the data is stored into the by the storage manager into the database. So what are all these things? What each of it performs? When you consider that this particular structure of database management system starts from the users, because he is the one who is responsible to give queries. One of the best user here you can find here, that is a database administrator, DBA. Database administrator is a person who is the main reason for maintaining the entire database, who is the main administrator in maintaining the entire database. So he is called as a database administrator. He will be using various administration tools, and these tools will rework or work with data, DML queries and DDL interpreters. These are again connected to various other parts of the system. So what are the basic job or work of a database administrator that we should see? So database is administrator is said to be one of the database users. What does he performs is, he the database administrator's activities or duties includes these things. These are the major things which are carried out by a database administrator. The first thing is said to be the schema definition. If you can understand what is schema, schema is nothing but the structure of the database. Yes, in database terms it is called as schema. In literal terms it is called as a structure. So schema definition, that means the database structures definition. So what does the DBA performs here? Database administrator is called as DBA. He creates the original database schema by executing a set of data definition statements in the DDL. If you can remember, DDL is a language, data definition language, which is used to describe the schema of the database. Yes or no? Similarly, the same thing happens here. Using that DDL language, the database administrator creates the original database schema, original database definition. Okay, that is why if you could look at the structure here, the database administrator is using DDL interpreter, data definition language interpreter. This data definition language is used to perform the structure of the database. Okay, the next duty of database administrator is storage structure and access method definition. He the database administrator performs the storage structure and access method definition. Storage structure is determined by the storage manager. Okay, next, schema and physical organization modification. So the database administrator carries out changes to the schema and physical organization to reflect the changing needs of the organization or to alter the physical organization. Why all this purpose? The main purpose is to improve the performance. So the database administrator, if you can look at, he is working with the schema, that is the entire structure of the database, as well as he is working with the data within the database. Okay, next, the database administrator is you performs granting user authority to access the database. If you look at our DML language commands, you have something called DCL language commands, you have something called as grant and revoke. Yes, that is done by the database administrator. Okay, that's why I told these are not basically used at the student level but are used at the organization level. Database administrator is also a person at the organization level. Okay, and this database administrator is basically you specifies integrity constraints, which are very important. Integrity constraints like primary key, not null, all these things are specified by the database administrator, and these are used to monitor performance and responding to changes in requirements. So these are all the various activities performed by the database administrator. So now what this database administrator is doing, he is working with the DML. He uses administration tools, and by using these administration tools he works with the DDL interpreter and DML queries. Okay, because it is the user who is giving out the queries. Okay, naive users are said to be unsophisticated users. That means they are the very basic users or the lame users who uses application interfaces like any of our Oracle databases also. By using those, they'll be giving out the queries to the database. Okay, and application programmers, these programmers are used, these are at the development level, at the coding level, at some company level. Okay, these application programmers will write some application programs, and whenever you say a program, it should have a compiler and a linker always, in order to compile the code, execute the code. If at all, if you have any external directories, those directories must be linked. So the application programmers will write application programs by, and also uses compiler and linker. Again, sophisticated users, these are called as analysts. These also uses query tools, so that they can use the DML queries and work on the DML queries. As we have seen, database administrator uses administration tools and uh, works with the DDL interpreter. Okay, these are all present in the query process. That means all the users, various types of users, whether it's non-sophisticated or sophisticated users, all those people work with the query processor. Okay, now this query processor consists of these various things. We have seen these things. Now DML queries are performed by using a DML compiler and organizer, which is available in the query evaluation engine. Okay, now this is all available where in the query processor. Once the query evaluation engine takes all the application code, the compiled and linked data, the DML queries data, all these things, then the query evaluation engine sends the query to various devices of the storage manager. These are nothing but the buffer manager, file manager, authorization and integrity manager, and transaction manager. Okay, so the query evaluation engine, whichever queries are taken by them, are evaluated or otherwise are processed into this buffer manager, file manager, authorization and integrity manager, and transaction manager. So if you look at each of these storage managers, the buffer manager and file manager The buffer, if you say buffer manager, it is used to store the data. The file manager also stores the data. Besides this, buffer manager and file manager works with the indices, nothing but the address values, works with the address values and stores the data. Coming to the authorization and integrity manager, uh, what it performs is this authorization and integrity manager works on the data dictionary, because the data is being stored into the database. It is not the actual information. So if you wanted to store the data into the database, you need a data dictionary always. That is managed by the authorization and integrity manager. Okay, and the next thing is the statistical data. Statistical data is obtained or is linked to the DML compiler and organizer. Is this clear? So all the entire storage manager is having a contact with the disk storage where the data is stored, so how the data is being stored, if you can understand, the data is being stored once the query is released by the various users, whether it's sophisticated or non-sophisticated users. The query passes through various compilers, interpreters, linkers, and it comes to the query evaluation engine. The query provided by the query evaluation engine will be stored depending upon its type of data. Like if it is data, it is stored into the buffer manager, and if it is indices, it is stored into the file manager, and if it is authorization and integrity manager, it is stored into the data dictionary. So depending upon the type of the data, the all these storage managers will be providing the data into the database. Is this clear? So this is the structure of the database. If you consider application programmers, those are nothing but computer professionals who writes application programs. Sophisticated users, these are used to interact with the system. They need not write any programs. Instead, they form their requests in a database query language. Okay, and specialized users are sophisticated users who writes specialized database applications. Among these applications are computer aided design systems, knowledge base, and expert systems. See, if you can look at the specialized system, these are not the specialized users. These are not the very old users. These are the recent users which work on the recent advancements in the databases. Naive users basically are unsophisticated users. That's why the examples are bank tellers, agents, etc. Okay, and the other type of user is a database administrator. Next, the query processor. We have seen that will accept query from the user and solves it by accessing the entire database. So what you'll have DDL interpreter, DML interpreter, and a query evaluation engine. This will execute low-level instructions generated by the DML compiler on the DBMS. Next, it is a storage manager. It consists of various components. We have seen transaction manager, file manager, buffer manager, and authorization and integrity manager. Okay, this transaction manager ensures that the database remains in a consistent state although there are certain system failures. This transaction manager is responsible to maintain the atomicity for the entire transaction, for the entire database. That means if at all if there is an error in between, it should immediately roll back, abort, and then roll back. Okay, when it roll backs, it means that it is not committed. So whenever it starts again, it will start from the beginning. Otherwise, if it has completed completely, then it will simply commit. So the transaction manager keeps track of all such tasks in the database. So if there are any system failures also, by using rollback, by using save point, by using commit, it will make the system consistent, the entire database to be in a consistent state. Simply, asset properties are maintained by the transaction manager. Okay, so buffer manager, if you consider, this is responsible for retrieving data from disk storage into main memory. This we obviously know it when you say buffer, because the databases is completely working on the hard disk. So the data has to be retrieved into another location. It is nothing but called as a main memory. So in the main memory, the required modifications will be performed, and when we use the commit statement, immediately it will be moving back to the hard disk. That is what happens with the buffer manager. Okay, so the very basic things which you should understand in a database management system is the structure is storage manager, query processor, and database administrator. Query processor keeps track of all the queries and provides a low level language to the query evaluation engine. Storage manager is used to store different types of data because the database is stored in the hard disk already. So depending upon the type of the data, each of it handles. Okay, so if you wanted to handle addresses kind of thing, it is handled by the file manager. If you wanted to access something like data dictionary, it is handled by authorization and integrity manager. And the next buffer manager, if you wanted to put the data into a main memory and work on it. So the basic things are query processor and storage manager. These are working, and these performs various things and performs processes all the queries given by various kinds of users. Is this clear? This is what is the structure of database management system. And just as the query is given, it is not getting stored into the database, rather it is passing through various steps here. So these are all main things who are all behind the database management system to make our data get stored into the database. This is what is called as the structure of the database. Hope everything is understood. Thank you.